Hello, everyone. My name is James Baskin, and I'm a member of the Phoenix Sister Cities Himeji Committee. Celebrating its 50th anniversary, Phoenix Sister Cities fosters relationships between the people of Phoenix and our sister cities around the world to promote friendship, peace, and prosperity. It's our honor to participate in this year's Matsuri and nurture Kintsugi, mending ourselves as we heal from illness and isolation, mending our communities by coming together virtually, and mending our world by promoting peace. Again, my name is James Baskind. As far as my own background, I've been involved with Japan and Japanese studies since the late 1980s. Somewhat recently, 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, I moved back from Japan to the US, where I was associate professor of Japanese intellectual history at a university in Japan. Currently, I'm an adjunct instructor at MCC in the University of Arizona in East Asian Studies. I've also practiced tea ceremony since the mid-1990s, early to mid-90s, when I was a grad student in Japan for a period. And tea is something that I'm happy to share with you. It's a deep world, and I think it's something that many people are interested in as well. So I will start with before I begin, I do also want to emphasize that joining Phoenix Sister Cities has a lot of benefits, both that will expand your mind and your heart, networking, learning, discounts, community, voice. There's all kinds of reasons I think that it's really a wonderful experience, and a wonderful community. And I do encourage everyone who's interested to join. So today we're going to talk about a brief history of tea. The tea ceremony in Japan is something that is held up as the quintessence of Japanese culture to this day. It's something that even if everybody doesn't practice it, or even has been in a tea ceremony itself, it is very much venerated as one of Japan's representative cultural forms. The origins of tea, it can be traced to the province of Yunnan in the south of France, in the south of China, the southernmost province in China. It starts appearing in the historical record in China in the 2nd century BCE. Now, it wasn't a common drink for the masses at the time, but it was talked about as being bartered or being traded, being something that had monetary value for its utility, and so there was a certain demand for it even in the 2nd century BCE. This is what it looks like picking tea in the present day. This is in Yunnan province. As you see tea, it looks like a bush, and that's what we know tea to look like, or assume tea looks like, and it does because it's kept that way. It gives the leaves the best. It produces the best leaves at this size. It's easy to pick as well. It can be cultivated on a large scale, but left to their own devices, the tea will grow into a considerable tree with a trunk that you can't put your arms around, and that's 40 feet tall or so. So tea is originally a tree, and it's kept and trimmed and cultivated to be a bush like this for cultivation purposes, for harvest purposes. This is Shennong, the divine husbandman, as he's called, of China. He's a semi-historical legendary figure. His dates are given as 2700 BCE. So obviously nearly 5,000 years ago. He is said to have tasted every single plant and herb in China in order to ascertain their medicinal value. So he's doing the hard work for us. If it's poisonous, it just goes right through him. It doesn't kill him, but he finds out through his research and development what are healthy for human beings. Of course, part of the legend is he has a transparent stomach, so he can see how they're interacting with his, right? So he has like a window to his belly, basically. Picture a window instead of a stomach. Tea made its way to Japan in Japanese history somewhat early. Kukai, who is a great cultural figure in Japan, a Buddhist monk, went to China to study for about 2 years, and he brought back tea seeds. And at the time, the Emperor Saga, was a great votary, a great fan of Chinese culture and Chinese civilization. So he actively promoted this new herb, this new tea plant, and he had it planted. He engaged in proto-tea ceremonies at temples where they would make tea. It wasn't anything like what we have today, of course. And he was a big supporter of tea. But both literally and metaphorically, it didn't take root. Not until several centuries later, with Eisai, also sometimes pronounced Yosai, who was a Zen monk who also went to China and brought back tea. In his case, he brought it back and it took root and flourished throughout the country. He wrote a book called Kisa Yojoki, a record of drinking tea to prolong health is the translation. It doesn't talk about Zen and tea, though that's a very common trope these days, just about its medicinal value, how it cultivates health for promotion of long life. The idea that Zen and tea are related or that tea is an expression of Zen is a later development. And this is Eisai again, or Yosai with his book, a little cartoon expression of him. He founded this temple in Kyoto, Ken Ninji. It's right in the middle of Kawaramachi, in the middle of downtown Kyoto. It's a beautiful temple. I recommend anyone who's going to Kyoto or in the near future to definitely visit it. There's a dragon mural on the ceiling that's painted. And if you walk around it, its eyes seem to follow you. It's some kind of optical illusion, but it's stunning, and it's a wonderful place to visit when you're in Kyoto. Now, the tea ceremony, as it's remembered or thought of today, is very much associated with women. This is a Meiji period. The Meiji period was from 1868 to 1912. This is a colored image of two women engaging the tea ceremony. This is a print from roughly the same period. And this is what would look like today. You see, a very nice, clean Japanese style room, a woman in a kimono making tea. But originally, it was the world of the samurai. It was not a polite pursuit for people to have fun and wear nice kimono only. It was part of statecraft during the Warring States period. This is the late 15th century or 16th century, that's when tea really came into its own. Feudal lords, the three unifiers of Japan, Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. The first two of those, Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi, were great proponents of tea, very much so that it did inform their statecraft, giving implements to one of your trusted retainers or one of your generals or to another feudal lord of a fief that you want the loyalty of. Was a act of loyalty. It showed you have this precious implement I'm giving you, and it was a sign of loyalty, fidelity, and you wouldn't break that bond. The tea room was a place where you could meet and talk. It was safe. I don't know of any assassinations that happened during the medieval period in the tea room because the swords were not allowed. There's a little gate you have to crawl through called the Nijiriguchi, which is meant to make everybody the same status. So rank does not exist in the tea room. It's supposed to be about humility. So the swords were left outside. You couldn't get through the room anyway, through the door with a sword sticking out anyway, through that little door. So it was the world of the samurai. And at that, the highest echelon of the samurai, the warrior society, I should say. There are a number of tea producing regions in Japan. In fact, many of them, but the two best, or the two greatest ones I think I could say are the area in Shizuoka. An area in Shizuoka Prefecture is about an hour from Tokyo. It's a big prefecture, so it depends where you're measuring from, but it's in the vicinity of the Kanto area. It's in the Kanto area, and as you can tell, it's Mount Fuji in the background. And this is Shizuoka Prefecture, and the tea there is very good. It's known traditionally for being very good, and it produces a large quantity of it. It's a very lot of water, rainfall. It's a very good tea producing region. My favorite, though, and what is considered probably the premier tea in Japan, comes from Uji. which is a town in Kyoto, about 15 minutes outside the city, a little 15, 20 minutes outside the center of Kyoto. And this is considered in many ways, maybe it's the Bordeaux of what Bordeaux is to wine, Uji is to tea. This is where the Obaku monks, the Chinese monks that represented the third great wave or third school of Zen, they brought to Japan in the mid 17th century. They brought and popularized sencha, which is loose leaf tea. Before that time, it was matcha, powdered tea. And I lived near this area and I visited the temple there that I did my dissertation research on. So matcha literally is powdered tea. This is the tea style that was brought back to Japan from China because during the Song period in China, this is what was popularly taken. And the monks that brought this back first were coming from Japan at a time that it was the Song period in China. And loose leaf tea or sencha was not yet the popular form of tea. This is what we call the matcha tea ceremony, sado, the tea ceremony like you know from the images you just saw. And then you have sencha, steeped tea, okay, which is loose leaf tea that you pour hot water in over. It sits there, it steeps in the tea, and then you pour it out. So with matcha, you're drinking tea leaves that are pulverized like into a very fine powder, like flour almost. And you pour water over that. You whisk it with a bamboo whisk like this. And you have your tea and you drink it. So you're drinking tea leaves, not water that was steeped in the tea leaves, okay? Steeped tea has its own ceremony. It's a very different ceremony. It grew originally as a reaction to the matcha ceremony, which was very codified, very solemn, seen as, you know, kind of bereft of innovation after a certain point. It became very ossified. But in time, so did the sencha ceremony. But the sencha ceremony has more colors. It's a little bit more perhaps playful than the more solemn matcha ceremony. This is a loose leaf tea here, sencha. Now, tea sweets are also an art form in unto itself. It's a great combination. Tea is bitter in a delicious way, of course, but it's bitter. And these sweets have just the right sweetness that it offsets that bitterness. It's kind of like chocolate and peanut butter. It's just a wonderful combination. And if you've had a real tea ceremony with real Japanese candy or confections like this, it's just absolutely sublime. It's wonderful. They reflect the season. They're very tastefully made. They're beautiful. It's art, and you sometimes don't want to even eat them because they're so beautiful. And of course, matcha ice cream, soft serve ice cream with matcha sprinkles. This is truly a treat. The somewhat bitterness of the matcha mixed in with ice cream. This is the kind of thing that it's good they don't have here so readily because I would be taking this every day. It's absolutely delicious. And I hope all of you have a chance to try this if you haven't already. This is a tea gathering at Himeji Castle. It's because Himeji has the most well-known castle in Japan. It's often the site for these kind of cultural events. This is a little video about the Himeji Castle.
The White Heron Castle in Himeji, Japan, considered the best preserved feudal castle in Japan, is both a national treasure and a World Heritage Site. The castle's first foundations were built in the 1400s, and it was gradually expanded across centuries before being completed in 1609. And after going through several years of restorations, it was reopened to the public in 2015. The castle remains one of the most popular cherry blossom viewing sites, with their cherry-lined lawn and topmost floor where visitors can gaze over the castle roofs to see the city of Himeji and the fish-shaped roof ornaments. To learn more about Himeji, Japan, and Phoenix's other sister cities, visit phoenixsistercities.org.
Okay, and thank you for your attention. I invite you all to become members, to consider becoming members of Phoenix Sister Cities and connect with our community. As a member, you'll be able to join delegations that meet with international political and business leaders. You'll be able to help us welcome international delegations to Phoenix, receive discounts on our events, and more. This year, as part of Phoenix Sister City's 50th anniversary, we hope to host an artist from Himeji to share a bit of Japanese culture and history with us. We're also planning a virtual tea tasting, showcasing teas from Sister Cities Chengdu, Himeji, Suwon, and Taipei. You can stay updated on event information and learn more about membership by visiting phoenixsistercities.org. Thank you, and I hope to see you all soon. And mata o aishimashou.